My hands trembled reading those words. That first night, I had collapsed beside her empty bed, sobbing until dawn. I tried to hold Daddy's hand at breakfast, but my fingers went through him. It scared me. Why can't he feel me anymore? The handwriting was unmistakably hers. Crooked letters, backwards, E's, the way she dotted her eyes with little hearts. The entries continued for months. Daddy brought a lady home. She sat in my chair. I screamed, but nobody heard. I pushed the glass off the table. The lady looked scared. Good. I remembered that night. Jennifer, a woman from work. The glass had shattered on its own. She never came back. I'm getting stronger. I moved Daddy's keys today. He looked right at me for a second, right at me. But then he looked away. My throat tightened. There had been moments, flickers in my peripheral vision, cold spots near her bedroom door. I'd convinced myself it was grief. The final entry was dated last week. I found where Daddy hides his sleepy pills. I've been putting them in his drinks because he needs rest. He's so tired all the time. Tonight I'm putting more, lots more, so he can finally sleep forever and play with me again. I've been so lonely, Daddy, but soon we'll be together. I'd convinced myself it was grief. The final entry was dated last week. The mug of tea I'd made sat steaming on my desk. I found where Daddy hides his sleepy pills. I hadn't made tea tonight. I've been putting them in his drinks because he needs rest. She stood in the doorway. He's so tired all the time. Waterlogged and pale. Tonight I'm putting more, pond water dripping from her white burial dress. So he can finally sleep forever and play with me again. Her eyes were milky, vacant, but her smile was exactly as I remembered. Drink your tea, Daddy, Emma whispered. I made it special. Her dead fingers reached toward me. We're going to play together forever now. The lights went out, and something cold, something small and wet wrapped itself around my hand. The diary was pink with a brass lock, the kind you'd find in any teenage girl's bedroom. I discovered it 3 years, 2 months, and 6 days after we buried my daughter Emma. It was wedged behind her old dresser, which I'd finally gathered the courage to move while cleaning out her room. My wife Sarah had left me 18 months prior. She said she couldn't live in a house that felt like a mausoleum. She wasn't wrong. Emma's room had remained untouched since the accident. Her posters still on the walls, her clothes still folded in drawers, her half-finished homework still spread across her desk. I couldn't let go. I don't think I wanted to. The lock was rusted, but it gave way easily with a gentle twist. The first entry was dated 4 years ago when Emma was 13. I smiled despite myself, reading her complaints about school, her excitement about a boy named Tyler, her frustration with us for not letting her stay out past 9. I read for hours, watching my daughter's inner world unfold across those pages. Her handwriting evolved from bubbly and rounded to a more sophisticated script. Her concerns matured, worries about college, about whether she was pretty enough, smart enough, good enough. I learned things about my daughter I'd never known, things she'd never told me. And then I reached the entry dated the day before she died. Dad's been weird lately. I can tell he's stressed about work, but he won't talk about it. I wish he'd open up more. I wish I could tell him how much I love him, but it always feels awkward. Maybe tomorrow. There's always tomorrow. I wept. I wept like I hadn't wept since the funeral. The words blurred as tears fell onto the page, smearing ink that had dried years ago. I closed the diary and held it to my chest, breathing in the faded scent of her strawberry perfume that still somehow clung to the pages. That night I slept with the diary on my nightstand. It felt like having a piece of her back. The next morning, I opened it again, wanting to reread her final entry. But something was wrong. There was a new page, a new entry, dated yesterday. Hi, Daddy. I'm so glad you found it. The handwriting was Emma's. I would recognize it anywhere, the way she dotted her eyes with tiny circles, the slight leftward slant, the looping Ys. But this was impossible. This diary had been hidden for over 3 years. I had opened it myself. I had read every page. My hands trembled as I stared at the words. My rational mind screamed that this was a joke, a prank, some horrible mistake. But the ink was fresh. I touched it, and it smeared slightly against my fingertip. I told myself I was losing my mind. Grief does strange things to people. I'd heard of parents who swore they heard their dead children's laughter, who saw them in crowds, who felt their presence in empty rooms. This was just my subconscious, filling in what I desperately wanted to see. I put the diary in a drawer and tried to forget about it. But that night, I couldn't resist. I opened the drawer, pulled out the diary, and flipped to where I'd left off. Another entry, dated today. You seem scared. Please don't be scared. I've wanted to talk to you for so long. It's so quiet here, Daddy. So quiet and dark. But I can see you sometimes. I watch you eat dinner alone. I watch you fall asleep on the couch with the TV on. I watch you cry when you think no one's looking. I'm always looking. I threw the diary across the room. It hit the wall and fell open, pages fluttering. I sat on the edge of my bed, my heart hammering against my ribs. This wasn't grief. This wasn't my imagination. Something was communicating with me through my dead daughter's diary. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room with every light on, the TV playing some mindless infomercial. I kept glancing toward the bedroom, half expecting to see Emma standing in the doorway, half hoping for it. By morning, I had convinced myself to approach this rationally. I was a structural engineer. I dealt in facts, in measurements, in things that could be proven. I would document everything. I retrieved the diary, photographed the new entries, and noted the time. Then I placed it on the kitchen table and set up my phone to record video of it continuously. If something was writing in this diary, I would capture it. I watched the footage for 6 hours. Nothing happened. The diary sat motionless on the table. No pages turned. No mysterious hand appeared to write new messages. But when I opened it, there was another entry. That was clever, Daddy, but you can't see me. Not yet. The place between us is very thin, like the skin on warm milk. Do you remember how I used to hate that? How you'd always skim it off my hot chocolate for me? I remember. I remember everything. Below the text was a drawing, a crude sketch of our old kitchen seen from above, and in the corner a small figure, watching. I installed cameras throughout the house. I stayed awake for 2 days straight, surviving on coffee and fear. The diary kept filling with entries, each one more detailed, more specific, more impossible to dismiss. She wrote about the argument Sarah and I had the week before the divorce, words spoken in private behind closed doors. She wrote about the time I'd considered selling the house and moving away, a thought I'd never voiced to anyone. She wrote about the loaded gun I kept in my nightstand drawer, and how she didn't want me to use it. Please don't, Daddy. Not yet. We'll be together soon enough. But not like that. Never like that. I started talking to the diary. At first, just whispered questions, feeling foolish. But then I wrote back, scrawling questions beneath her entries. Is it really you, Emma? How is this possible? Her response came within hours. It's really me, Daddy. And it's possible because you never let go. You kept my room. You kept my things. You kept the door open. Don't you understand? When you love someone that much, when you refuse to let them leave, they can't. I've been here the whole time, trapped. The word trapped made my blood run cold. Do you want to leave? I wrote. Her answer was longer this time, filling an entire page. I did at first. I was so scared when I woke up in the dark. I could hear you crying, calling my name, but I couldn't answer. I tried so hard to answer. Then I realized I wasn't alone in the dark. There are others here, Daddy. Others who got stuck between. They whisper to me. They tell me things. They told me about the diary, how I could reach you if I tried hard enough. They helped me, but they want something in return. What do they want? I wrote, my pen shaking. The next entry appeared while I was watching. I saw the pages flutter, saw the indentations forming in the paper as if pressed by an invisible pen. The words materialized slowly, deliberately. They want the door to open wider. They want to come through. And the only way to open it wider is for you to join me. Don't worry, Daddy. It doesn't hurt. I promise it doesn't hurt. I'll be right here waiting. We'll be together again just like before. Just walk upstairs to my room. The door is open. It's always been open. I looked up from the diary. The house had grown cold, so cold I could see my breath. And somewhere upstairs, I heard a door creak open. Emma's door. I should have run. Every instinct screamed at me to flee, to burn the diary, to never look back. But I thought of her smile, her laugh, the way she used to hug me so tight after a nightmare. 3 years, 2 months, and 6 days of crushing grief. 3 years of waking up and remembering every single morning that she was gone. I climbed the stairs. The hallway was dark despite the morning sun streaming through the windows at either end. The shadows seemed thicker here, more substantial. They moved at the edges of my vision, shapes that weren't quite human, watching, waiting. Emma's door was open, just as the diary had promised. A faint light glowed from within, a pale blue luminescence that pulsed like a heartbeat. I stepped inside. Her room was exactly as I'd left it, but wrong. The posters on the walls showed scenes I didn't recognize. Dark forests, empty houses, faces pressed against windows from the outside. Her stuffed animals sat in a row on her bed, but their button eyes had been replaced with something wet and gleaming. And there at her desk sat Emma. She turned to face me, and for one perfect moment, she was my daughter again, 14 years old, her hair in a ponytail, her smile lighting up the room. "Daddy," she said. "You came." I took a step forward, then another. Tears streamed down my face, and I reached out to hold her, to feel her warmth, to prove that this nightmare had an ending where I got her back. But as my fingers brushed her cheek, her smile widened, too wide, stretching past the boundaries of human expression, revealing rows of teeth that went back too far, too many, like a shark's mouth turned inside out. "I knew you'd come," said the thing wearing my daughter's face. "They all come eventually. Love is such a useful door." Behind me, I heard Emma's bedroom door slam shut. The blue light flickered and died, plunging the room into absolute darkness. And in that darkness, I felt cold hands, dozens of them, hundreds of them, pulling me downward, downward, through the floor, through the foundation, into a place where the darkness was alive and hungry. The last thing I heard was my daughter's voice, her real voice, screaming from somewhere far away. "Daddy, no! I told you not to come. I tried to warn you. They made me write it. They made me..." Then silence. Cold. Eternal. I am still in the dark. I don't know how long it's been. Time moves differently here, if it moves at all. But I've learned what the others learned before me. I've learned how to reach through the thin places, how to leave messages in the world I left behind. My wife Sarah found the diary last week. I watched her read the new entries, watched her face cycle through grief and confusion and desperate hope. She wrote back this morning. She asked if it was really me. I told her yes. I told her I missed her. I told her the door was open and I'm waiting.
The wallpaper in Emma's room had to go. It was yellowed, peeling at the corners, older than the house's listing claimed. Marcus had promised his 7-year-old daughter a fresh start after the divorce, and this Victorian fixer-upper was supposed to be their new beginning. He started peeling at midnight, after Emma fell asleep. The paper came off in satisfying strips, revealing bare plaster beneath. Then he saw the first drawing. A crayon sketch of a little girl. Blonde hair, blue dress. Just like Emma. Marcus's stomach tightened. He peeled more. Another drawing. The same girl, but now something tall and thin stood behind her. Its arms were too long, reaching past its knees. It had no face. His hands trembled as he tore away more wallpaper. The drawings continued in sequence, dozens of them, telling a story. The faceless figure moving closer to the girl. Standing in her doorway. Sitting on her bed. Leaning over her sleeping body. In the final drawing, the girl's eyes were scratched out with black crayon. The figure was holding her hand. Marcus stumbled backward, his heel catching something. He looked down. Fresh crayon shavings on the floor. Blue and black. The wallpaper hadn't been here when they moved in 3 weeks ago. He was certain of it. "Daddy?" Emma stood in the doorway, her nightgown glowing in the hallway light. But she wasn't looking at him. She was looking at the corner of the room, where the shadows pooled deepest. "He says you're not supposed to see those yet," she whispered. "He says he's been waiting for a little girl in this room for a very long time. He says the last one's pictures were under the floor." Marcus couldn't move. His daughter's eyes reflected something behind him, something tall, something thin, something that shouldn't exist. "He says I'm going to draw pictures too, Daddy." Emma smiled, but it wasn't her smile. It was too wide. Too knowing. "He says you can watch." The light bulb above Marcus burst. In the darkness, he heard his daughter laugh, a sound layered with something ancient and hungry underneath. When the morning sun finally crept through the window, Marcus sat alone in the empty room. The walls were bare. The drawings were gone. And on the floor beside him lay a single sheet of paper. A crayon drawing of a man with no eyes, holding a little girl's hand. Emma was never found. But sometimes, late at night, new families in that house hear scratching inside the walls. And when they tear away the wallpaper, they find drawings. Always drawings. Always one more little girl.
My grandmother died with a mouth full of gold. The lawyer said I'd inherited her farmhouse. What he didn't mention was the garden behind it. 3 acres of black soil that grandmother had tended for 62 years, refusing to let anyone else touch it. I moved in last October with my 4-year-old daughter, Lily. The house needed work, but the garden needed something else entirely. It called to me through the kitchen window, that dark rectangle of earth, perfectly tilled despite grandmother's 3 months in the ground. The first tooth surfaced on a Tuesday. Lily found it near the rose bushes, a molar, yellowed with age, with a gold filling that caught the autumn light. I told myself an animal had dug it up. I told myself a lot of things those first weeks, but they kept growing. By November, they'd sprouted in rows like corn, hundreds of teeth pushing up through the soil, some still trailing roots of pink and red. They grew larger each day, and the gold fillings multiplied until the garden glittered at sunset like a dragon's hoard. I should have run. Instead, I started hearing grandmother's voice. It came from the soil at night, wet and garbled, like someone speaking through a mouthful of dirt. She told me about the garden's true purpose. She told me what she'd planted there for 6 decades. She told me about the children who'd wandered onto her property, the drifters, the census takers who'd knocked on the wrong door. Their teeth had fed her garden, and now she needed more. Last night, I woke to find Lily's bed empty. I followed her giggling through the moonlit house, out the back door, into that terrible garden. She knelt in the soil, her nightgown soaked in morning dew, her small fingers digging. "Mommy, look," she whispered. "Great-grandma's teaching me." In her palm sat a tooth, small, white, and fresh. A child's tooth, and it was still warm. Lily smiled up at me, and I saw the gap in her bottom row where her baby tooth had been. But I also saw something else. Her eyes had changed. They held 62 years of hunger behind them. "The garden needs feeding, Mommy," she said with grandmother's voice. "And you have so many pretty teeth." The soil began to shift around my ankles. I should have run, but grandmother's garden never lets anything leave. The teeth were growing toward me now, gold fillings glinting, and somewhere beneath the earth, I heard chewing.
My daughter Lily started talking to her closet 3 weeks ago. "Mr. Finger says you shouldn't come in here, Daddy," she'd whisper, her eyes fixed on the darkness between the sliding doors. "He doesn't like grown-ups." I dismissed it as childhood imagination. My wife had passed 8 months prior, and the therapist said fantasy friends were normal coping mechanisms. But then I noticed the scratches. Thin, parallel lines running down the inside of the closet door, too high for Lily to reach. "Mr. Fingers made those," she explained matter-of-factly. "He gets excited when I tell him about you." Last Tuesday, I woke at 3 a.m. to giggling. I crept to Lily's room and pressed my ear against the door. 2 voices. My daughter's sweet laughter and something else. A wet clicking sound like someone trying to speak with a mouthful of broken teeth. "Daddy's coming," Lily whispered. "Hide." I burst in. The closet door was open 6 inches, and in that slice of darkness, I saw it. A smile. Just a smile floating 4 feet off the ground, with too many teeth arranged in rows that curved backward into the throat. No face, no body. Just that impossible gleaming grin stretching wider as it retreated into the shadows. I tore the closet apart. Nothing. Just clothes and shoes and the faint smell of copper. Lily screamed at me for hours. "You scared him away. He was my friend!" She refused to speak to me for days. The scratches on the door disappeared. I thought it was over. Tonight, I tucked her in and she hugged me for the first time in weeks. "I forgive you, Daddy," she said sweetly. "Mr. Fingers forgives you too." "He came back?" "He never left." She smiled, too wide, teeth glinting in the nightlight. "He just found a better hiding spot." I felt it then, the weight on my shoulders I'd attributed to grief, the clicking in my neck I blamed on stress, the way my jaw had been aching, stretching for weeks now. I walked to the bathroom mirror. My reflection smiled back, but I wasn't smiling. The face in the mirror tilted its head, and I felt my own neck move against my will. My mouth opened wider, wider, and from somewhere deep in my throat came that wet, clicking laughter. "Daddy's been such a good hiding spot," my reflection said with my daughter's voice. "But I think it's time to come out and play." My hands reached for my face. I couldn't stop them. "I found Emma's diary 3 weeks ago, buried inside the wall during renovations. She died 6 years ago, drowned in Miller's Pond at 8 years old. I buried her myself, watched the dirt swallow her tiny white coffin, but the diary entries started the day after her funeral. Daddy didn't come say goodnight. I waited by his bed, but he was crying too loud to hear me. My hands trembled reading those words. That first night, I had collapsed beside her empty bed, sobbing until dawn. I tried to hold Daddy's hand at breakfast, but my fingers went through him. It scared me. Why can't he feel me anymore? The handwriting was unmistakably hers. Crooked letters, backwards, E's, the way she dotted her eyes with little hearts. The entries continued for months. Daddy brought a lady home. She sat in my chair. I screamed, but nobody heard. I pushed the glass off the table. The lady looked scared. Good. I remembered that night. Jennifer, a woman from work. The glass had shattered on its own. She never came back. I'm getting stronger. I moved Daddy's keys today. He looked right at me for a second, right at me. But then he looked away. My throat tightened. There had been moments, flickers in my peripheral vision, cold spots near her bedroom door. I'd convinced myself it was grief. The final entry was dated last week. I found where Daddy hides his sleepy pills. I've been putting them in his drinks because he needs rest. He's so tired all the time. Tonight I'm putting more, lots more, so he can finally sleep forever and play with me again. I've been so lonely, Daddy, but soon we'll be together. My blood froze. The mug of tea I'd made sat steaming on my desk. I hadn't made tea tonight. Slowly I turned around. She stood in the doorway, waterlogged and pale, pond water dripping from her white burial dress. Her eyes were milky, vacant, but her smile was exactly as I remembered. Drink your tea, Daddy. Emma whispered. I made it special. Her dead fingers reached toward me. We're going to play together forever now. The lights went out, and something cold, something small and wet wrapped itself around my hand. The diary was pink with a brass lock, the kind you'd find in any teenage girl's bedroom. I discovered it 3 years, 2 months, and 6 days after we buried my daughter Emma. It was wedged behind her old dresser, which I'd finally gathered the courage to move while cleaning out her room. My wife Sarah had left me 18 months prior. She said she couldn't live in a house that felt like a mausoleum. She wasn't wrong. Emma's room had remained untouched since the accident. Her posters still on the walls, her clothes still folded in drawers, her half-finished